For the first time, I realized that Donald Trump, my buddy, who's now number 45th president of the United States of America. That's what we're fighting for.
Broadcasting from Charlotte, North Carolina, the Queen City, this is On the Air with Deplorable Pride. Tune in at ontheairwithdeplorablepride.org every Wednesday, a conservative LGBT talk show. We are your voice. Here's your host, Brian Talbert and Chris O'Shea.
Okay. Yeah, I forget what I'm doing sometimes.
All right, welcome. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's the 17th. All right, welcome back to another episode of On the Air with Deplorable Pride. Today is October the 17th, 2018. My name is Chris O'Shea with Carolinas for Trump. Here with Brian Talbert of Deplorable Pride. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I don't know if it's allergies or something, but I'm all stuffed up and congested, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm not as talkative as usual. But I am excited to be back for another episode of On the Air with Deplorable Pride. And we're coming off the heels of the Turn Up American Freedom Rally, which we had been kind of speaking about in previous episodes. That was this past Saturday in Union County, North Carolina.
That was a pretty good success. I wanted to tell you I got some numbers. Yesterday, they told me at the Union GOP that it was right a little over 200 people.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I was so busy running around, trying to keep everything running on track and on time that I didn't really have a chance to see how many people were there. But
yeah, a lot of
I know
people
we went through 17 or 18 cases, packs of hot dogs. That's what Josh told me, at least.
Yeah, a lot of people were giving me some numbers, and I was just like, just from the crowd that I saw out there, I was like, those numbers have got to be off, because I see a lot more people. I saw a lot more people than what people were saying. And when I was in the Union County GOP yesterday to see Lara Trump, I had a couple of people come in and tell me that the numbers were right at just a little over 200 people showed to that event.
That's awesome. That's what we were shooting for, about 150. That was our target. If we hit 150, we'd be good. But
it shows the enthusiasm on the people on the GOP side. So I think that's a good indicator for the enthusiasm, and it matches the us being at the highest enthusiasm level in our history.
Now, you want to talk about enthusiasm? What do you think of Mark Burns?
He was very enthusiastic. I enjoyed listening to him. He is. Of course, being a Southern Baptist, I'm used to that type of preaching. So that's typical Carolina preacher there, right there.
Now, but he was very I did not grow up with that kind of stuff. So
it's hard to fall asleep in a Southern Baptist church, because you'll be awakened every 5 seconds.
Seriously. I first saw Pastor Mark Burns at, I forget which Trump rally it was that he opened up. And from the first time that I saw him, I was like, oh my God, this guy has it. Like, whatever that magical, energy.
Maybe tell everybody a little bit about him, because honestly, I've been following Trump from the primaries to the presidency, and I had never heard of Pastor Burns.
Really?
I had never heard of him. And I apparently have missed out on a lot with him.
Well, Mark Burns, he's a pastor of the, I forget what the name of the church is, but he is the owner and CEO of the Now television network. So I guess he's a bit of a televangelist. But I found out about him, obviously, when he spoke before Donald Trump at one of his rallies in North Carolina. It might have been Concord, might have been Greensboro, might have been Charlotte. I forget which one was the first time I saw him. But this guy gets up there, and his energy is like a 12 out of 10. And I mean, he's got sweat just pouring off of him, and he's just fired up. And it was funny because we met him after the Donald Trump came to Charlotte around this time. Maybe it was a little bit further into October of 2016, and gave a kind of a closed door policy speech about like urban redevelopment or something at what was it, the place uptown. Anyway, afterwards, a bunch of us went across the street to Rock Bottom. We went with Bill Mitchell. We invited him to have dinner with us. He came over and hung out for a while. And as we were leaving, Mark Burns and his wife walked by and got to. I mean, I turned around. I was like, "Oh my God, it's Pastor Burns!" And I was just blown away. He was there, and we got a picture with him there. And then at the inauguration, I bumped into him in front of the Trump hotel, and so we had sort of met a couple times, but I figured he'd probably meet so many people he wouldn't remember us. But I went down while the first speaker was speaking, and I went to just say hi, introduce myself again. And he was telling me, like, he's like, "Can you turn the volume up a little bit when I'm up there?" And I'm like, "You got it, man. We'll do that." But not that he needs it. I got to say, is the most difficult thing, and I'm not an audio engineer at any sort of professional level. I know the very, very basics, but this guy is so loud and enthusiastic.
I don't think he needed a microphone.
He didn't need the microphone, but I was trying to like adjust it so it wasn't distorted or clipping or anything sounding bad on the other end. And he saw that I had turned the mic gain down a little bit, and he like shot me a look, and he's like, "Turn it back up." It was the funniest thing. It's in the video that I got. If people want to see, they can see it on my Facebook page. But anyway, he's
very energetic.
Close with Trump. He's flown around the country on Trump Force One, on Trump's private plane, and Air Force One. He's been in the Oval Office. He's one of the pastors in the Faith Advisory Board. It's sort of an unofficial conglomeration of evangelical preachers, pastors, whatever they're called, that have worked closely with Donald Trump during the campaign and since he's been in the White House. So he's definitely a friend of Trump. He's a surrogate, goes on TV making the case for Trump, or at least he did during 2016. And right after our event, I think he was flying to Dallas to speak at some other events. So he's a big name in the Trump world, and definitely it was awesome that he was willing to come to our event on Saturday.
I enjoyed meeting him. He was a very energetic man, and put a fire.
People love him too. I mean,
yeah, he put a fire in the crowd that got us energized and it was a great way to start the rally.
The only drawback was that you go from that level of energy and excitement, it's hard to follow that. Like, I felt bad. Mark Harris did a great job, and he's the Southern Baptist pastor or whatever as well, and he did a really good job of taking that energy that Pastor Burns built up. But it really, it's got to be tough to follow someone of that level, just because that's what people are now expecting. You've got to keep them entertained and focused and energized.
Yeah.
So it's big shoes to fill, but it was a good event. Mark Harris was great. He stuck around, got to meet people, and that's really the big thing, is to get people to the polls to vote for Mark Harris and the other local offices as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to touch on about that rally. I think we made some pretty good progress at that rally. I got to meet Mark Harris, and I after I got up and I made my little speech, Mark Harris came and reached out to me after I got off the stage and gave me his card. He agreed that there is a need for a bridge to be built between the GOP and the LGBT community, and he felt the need to reach out to me after that. He said he acknowledged the problem, gave me his number, and we're gonna have a talk once he gets into office, once he gets settled in his new job in DC. And I was honest with him. I told him I wasn't on board with him at the beginning, and But I have to give credit where it's due. He reached out to me and acknowledged the problem, and I believe that he is sincere, and I'm going to go with that. So I've got some really high hopes for what we could possibly have coming down the road for us as building the bridge between the GOP and the LGBT communities. So,
now you're going to get a lot of heat for that. I know you endorsed Mark Harris on the Deplorable Pride page, and there's probably a lot of people out there who are skeptical and confused as to why you would endorse him.
Well, now, I had to give the man reached out to me and acknowledged the problem that I've been trying to get the GOP to acknowledge for quite a while, and he did, and he reached out to me, and I got to take the man at his word. He said he's because I know a lot of people will say a lot of things to get elected, but that's usually with me seeking them. But he reached out to me, so I'm gonna go with that. I can't judge him for the past of what the party has done. Let
me ask you this, because this is specifically what I'm getting at, and I think that I know you well enough that I sort of know where your opinion's going to lie here. But because people listening are going to probably have the same questions, he's been very public about in the past about believing that being gay or whatever it's a choice. It's not something that you're born with. It's not something that's just how you are. It's an actual choice that you make, and he is against gay marriage. I'm curious to get your perspective on those 2 points, as it relates to supporting someone like Mark Harris for Congress.
Well, as far as him believing that it is a choice, I think that is, I don't know. It's I just don't think he's met the right gay people to talk to, and a lot of times it was acceptable for a politician running to exclude our community and everything. They didn't have to really dwell much into their personal opinions on the subject. I don't fault anyone or hold that against them for someone to be against gay marriage. That is a personal choice that is theirs. I respect that. Them having that opinion. It's just that when you get into office and you try to start making and passing laws to to stop something like that, that's where we'll have our differences. But I respect his right to have his opinion on his belief, and but I also, for someone to have that opinion, people evolve, people change. We've seen that in the past 2 years. We've seen Republican politicians under Donald Trump that have it's not necessarily that you change the way you believe on a certain thing. It's just that you see a difference in how our country's going to go, and the types of laws and the priorities and things. And you're starting to see that politicians are starting to see things. They're enjoying the winning. As far as what was the second part of that you were asking me?
Well, basically, that you're supporting someone who I think a lot of people would say is quote unquote anti-gay. But and my perspective on it is, I
don't see him as anti-gay. Just because someone has a different belief than me, I don't necessarily equate that to being anti-me. I mean, look at the whole LGBT community as a whole. I'm listed by the majority of the by the majority of the LGBT community. I'm classified as anti-gay.
Exactly.
But I saw a politician that heard me speak, acknowledged the problem, and is willing to address that. And I can't sit back here and hold a grudge against the Republican Party that they've neglected my community for so long, when someone did turn around and reach out to me. And I've got to take the man at his word, and he's acknowledged the problem. And I've got to put the past behind us, and I agree. We're all different under the new Trump Republican Party. So if he's willing to reach out, he's willing to acknowledge the problem, and he's willing to, try to build that bridge, then I'm going to be there with him. I don't have to agree with everything that Mark Harris supports, because I was not on the Mark Harris train there for a long time, and I was vocal about that.
Yep.
But I can change, and I have. And
it's like he wasn't on the Trump train from day one. I think he was a Cruz supporter at first, and he infamously made some comments on a radio interview that sort of circulated during the primaries. And like you said, you gotta be able to move on, and
it's
people
like evolution in the party, and if the man's willing to extend his hand, then I'm willing to stand there and shake it. And we don't have to agree on everything in order to get something done. And like I said, just in this past year alone, I've seen politicians reach out to us and acknowledge a problem, committing to actually trying to solve this problem. And I can't sit back here and hold a grudge for what's been done in the past. I got to look forward to the future. And if
not
he's
just
willing,
that, but you have to look at, those are just a couple of differences. And this was sort of the, one of the themes of, what I think you and I both touched upon when we spoke at the rally, was that we have to look beyond our differences, what makes us different, and focus more on all the things we share in common. So I think that, just like you said, you got to be able to move forward from the past. And
just look at it this way. When I publicly endorsed Mark Harris and Deplorable Pride endorsed Mark Harris, I think you can see it on our webpage. The backlash that I got from doing that, I was told that some guy contacted us and said that he doesn't even believe that there's actually one gay or lesbian person in our group, that we're all just posers and wannabes. And these are his exact words. We're posers and wannabes, and we're just using the LGBT community to whatever it is he thinks we're trying to gain. But that's the type of person that no matter what olive branch the GOP extends to the LGBT community will never be enough to that type of person. I'm the type of gay person that I am willing to stand here, acknowledge our differences, but I'm also willing to stand here and reach my hand out and take that olive branch. And until we have more people in our community that is willing to do that with people that they've typically disagreed with, then we're never going to get anything solved, and we're never going to find common ground. So I think it is important to take that olive branch. And if Mr. Harris is willing to extend that, then I'm willing to see where we in the LGBT community can work with Mr. Harris to improve not only our community, but the nation as a whole. So I'm willing to put our differences aside and work in the things that bring us together.
Well said. Well said. So what else is new?
That's where I think a lot of the LGBT, it's like I've always said, the LGBT community has always been their own worst enemy, and we have since the beginning of Stonewall. We're not willing to forgive the people in the past. We're not willing to see another side other than what our own side. So, that's where the LGBT community cannot always be not always be taken, but we've also got to give. And if for true change to happen and that build it's going to have to take a give and take on both of it from both sides.
Awesome. So what else is new, Brian? What else is up this week?
Well, we've got some important news. We've got the most homophobic president nominating an openly gay conservative to the liberal ninth appeals court. Not bad for a homophobic president.
Well, that's what the left would have you believe. Yeah. So I had seen this headline a couple of days ago. The guy's name is Patrick Bumate, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the Washington Blade, he is the second openly gay person that Trump has nominated for the federal bench. And Mary Rowland is a magistrate judge who Trump nominated for the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois in June, and she's waiting to be confirmed as well. So he'll be the third openly gay federal appeals court judge in the U.S. In the United States.
And
once he's confirmed, if I'm reading that correctly.
Curious to see how that he's going to be welcomed or accepted in the very liberal Ninth Circuit.
Yeah, but we got Rick Grinnell. He's the ambassador to Germany. He's another openly gay member of obviously a member of the LGBT community that Trump has promoted to a high position like that.
So he actually might be in the running for U.S. ambassador to the UN.
I had heard that as well. So we'll have to keep our eyes and ears open for that. But you're right. It's just more and more examples of Trump caring more about the person's performance and capabilities than their identity or their orientation or anything like that.
I actually had a president that is acknowledging people for their accomplishments and not just for how they were born, and that that's we always knew that. Being conservative, we always knew that Trump was that type of president. Just like on day one, he's the first president in U.S. history to ever accept gay marriage on the first day of his presidency. We've not had that with one Democrat president or Republican president since. So, this it's a new party under Trump, and it's a party I am welcoming and it's so excited about.
It is interesting to see the direction the Republican Party goes in. Maybe one of these days they'll even win me over, but not yet.
I'm trying. I got faith in I've got faith in the Republican Party. I didn't go through everything that I've gone through so far in the 20 years of being a Republican. I didn't go through all that just to give up on it right now when things are starting to go good. So I'm still fighting for that party, and I'm still going to win you over.
Well, that's what Chris Turner said too, and so far we've made no progress there.
Well, and also, all we got to do is get, here's another thing that Trump's done that might get you over to the Republican Party. He's looking to redo all the marijuana classification here in the United States. So that's really the only thing that separates us libertarians and Republicans.
Well, there's a little bit more to it than that, but I do agree that libertarianism in theory works, but it's really hard to be a staunch libertarian and at the same time live in the real world. So yeah, definitely I think the marijuana reclassification or rescheduling
is way overdue. I mean, our stance on marijuana laws is very primitive. There's we've got people that get will take someone's life and they get 10 years, but you let someone be caught with a certain amount of marijuana and they get life in prison. Any normal person with half of a brain in their head should see that there's something, just fundamentally wrong with that. There's no way that marijuana should be ever in a class of drugs of heroin, crack, or coke. It's night and day compared to marijuana.
Well, I hope that he saves that for the 2020 re-election campaign. I think that could be certainly a powerful way to win voters whenever support is needed. Not that he'll need that extra boost, but be a nice little trick up his sleeve to roll that out towards the election.
Would be nice to legally smoke a joint after the re-election of Donald Trump in 2020.
Yep. Well, what else is? I guess yesterday was sort of a big event. I didn't participate, but
I got to meet Lara Trump, and she was down campaigning in North Carolina. She's a North Carolina girl herself. We got some video on Deplorable Pride's page if people want to check it out of her speaking. And she was down here campaigning for some close district races here in North Carolina. She was in Wilmington, then she went to Anson County. She kind of made her rounds around the 9th district, and she also was up in Salisbury, and she went into Charlotte. It was kind of fun meeting her and being there listening to her. And then later on that night at 9:00, got to see her on Hannity wearing the same dress that I got pictures of her in. So it's always nice to see a North Carolina person who have been and comes back, and they don't forget their North Carolina roots, and standing there talking to her, hearing her speak and everything. You could see the North Carolina girl in her. So that was a little bit of pride for me.
Yeah, I know during the campaign in 2016, she campaigned hard here in North Carolina, especially. But
I'm getting closer and closer to meeting Trump. I just hadn't met her, just haven't got to him yet. So, but I did
soon enough, Brian.
I want you to, if you notice on the video, I got on Deplorable Pride's page. If you notice, I kind of photobombed her because I was standing there while she was talking to the press, and I was doing some cell phone video, and took Deplorable Pride's business card. And
I saw that.
Let it up a little bit, so everybody Deplorable Pride photobombed her and came back down, and but I was kind of nervous because that is really the first time I've ever been at an event anywhere where Secret Service was everywhere. And,
oh, really?
Yeah.
What about when you met Hillary?
Well, I don't know if she would have been. She was just a candidate.
Yeah, but I mean, she's former first lady.
I'll be honest with you. Well, that's true. But I'll be honest with you. I think it was back then. That was 2007. I don't think the political climate was as the way it is right now, because I'll be honest. I went through checkpoint to be able to. I sat in the bleachers right behind her and got to meet her, shake her hand, but. I just don't recall seeing the presence of the Secret Service like I did with Lara Trump. But I was standing there. I was kind of nervous. I had my water bottle and I had my phone, and I wanted to set my water bottle down on the ground so I could clap and everything. But I was like, well, if I set it down, I don't know about reaching back down there and picking it back up, because I mean, everything that was going through my mind, because they were like, they had their eye on her the whole time. And I'm sure when I met Hillary, there was quite a bit of Secret Service. I just didn't pay attention to it as much as what I did this time. But I was like watching my moves and everything. Just I said, I don't want to. Because I'm the type of person, I'll reach out to shake your hand, and don't want to get tackled in the process.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure meeting her, and she was. I wish we would have had more time to talk and got to meet and get to know her a little bit more. But she got a little behind and some of her events down in Anson County, and she had a flight to catch. So she came in and gave her speech and spoke with the press, took a few pictures, but she had to get a state trooper escort all the way to the airport because she was running behind for her flight. So like I said, I wish we would have got a little more time to meet her and get a few words with her, but we got to take what you can get, and she's on the road doing what she can to get Republicans elected this midterm. So I understand that she had to get going, but hopefully next time it'll be Trump I'll get to meet.
Yeah,
and I did get to give her those Deplorable Pride's business cards, and I did make sure she heard me, acknowledged me, that I said, let the president know that we're willing to we're here wanting to work with him and how we can build a bridge. So who knows, you never know, drop a card, you never know where that card's whose desk that card may land on. So I handed her two, so she took them from me, and so who knows, maybe that one of those cards made it to the president's desk.
That's awesome. Well, good stuff. We might as well roll into our next segment here, which is exciting because we've got a guest this week, the mayor of Indian Trail, North Carolina. You guys have heard us talk about Indian Trail over the last several podcasts because, frankly, we've been doing a lot of stuff in Indian Trail. We had the American Freedom Rally this last weekend, and I think it was the 2 weekends before, we did roadside rallies, or it was maybe 3. We did Albemarle in the middle. But the mayor of Indian Trail has reached out to Brian and just to sort of start building a relationship with us, because obviously we're politically active in the area, and we're going to be in Indian Trail, so might as well get to know the mayor, right?
I got a lot of hope with the mayor. He's he seems like he's also one of the GOP that sees a problem with the disconnect with the people, and he's focused on wanting to bring in the younger voters, because that's a big voting bloc that's going to be coming onto our scene relatively soon, and he acknowledges that. And I think if we're going to build a bridge with the LGBT community and the GOP, Mayor Alvarez is exactly the type of GOP politician that we're going to need on our side, and he acknowledges that, and he's wanting to sit down and talk with us. I've got some high hopes for the progress that we can make working with GOP politicians like him.
Definitely, and he is the sort of Republican that could win me over.
Yeah,
and I haven't got to know him as well as you have. I know you've had more conversations with him, but just the little bit that I got to meet him the other day, and our conversation we had just before starting this recording, it's like you said, it's promising. I'm glad to see that there are people out there like
I think
Mayor Michael Alvarez, and look forward to working with him in the future.
I think the listeners, when they hear him, and if you hear him talk, and I think they're going to walk away with a better understanding of where the new type of Republican Party that we're starting to see, and all this is taking place under Trump.
Definitely. So without any further ado, we present to you the mayor. I'm sorry, is there further ado?
Yeah, well, just one more important thing. Today is early voting in North Carolina, so get out there, vote, check the North Carolina GOP site, and you'll have complete voter guides. If you have any confusions as to what candidate is running for, and which judges, we've got some very big amendments that are on our ballots this year. The most important one to me is the voter ID law in North Carolina. So the citizens are actually going to have a voice this election as to whether we're going to, how our elections are going to go. And that is a very important one. So definitely get out there today and vote, and vote for these amendments.
Awesome. And we'll touch more on that after we wrap up the interview. But right now we want to get right over to Michael Alvarez, the mayor of Indian Trail, North Carolina. All right, with us today, we've got Michael Alvarez. He's the mayor of Indian Trail, North Carolina, which is about a half an hour outside of Charlotte. Is that about right?
Depending on the time of day and the traffic, yeah, we're about, from the center of the city, Indian Trail is about 19 miles.
Yeah, Independence Boulevard, the traffic on the weekends at least is not exactly the easiest traffic to commute through, but it's a nice place. And last weekend we had the Turn Up American Freedom Rally at the Union County GOP headquarters in Indian Trail. And you were there, which was awesome to have you as part of that as well. So we've, I guess, sort of taken over Indian Trail the last few weeks at least.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You're welcome to town anytime you come. We love to have you here and show support for your rights and what you stand for, and to stand beside you and promote what you stand for.
Mr. Mayor, maybe you can give tell our listeners a little bit about yourself personally, and a little bit about the city that you represent, and so they can get a feel on just exactly who you are, and what little spot in North Carolina that you come from.
Okay, well, I'm married. I have 2 children, one a sophomore in high school, one in junior high. I'm originally from the New York, New Jersey area, moved down here in 1999. I worked for Harris Teeter and for part-time, and for the past 23 years, I've been in the real estate and mortgage business, and give a lot of time to my community. My major in college has been sociology with a minor in world religions. Other than that, I'm just a pretty simple person. Pretty easy to see. What you see is what you get. I don't have time to candy coat things, so I'm pretty much upfront with everyone, and I expect people to be upfront with me.
That's probably the New York in you coming out.
Yeah,
a lot of people are from New York. I'm from Massachusetts. This whole area seems to be a kind of a destination for people from other parts of the country to move to.
I'm actually a minority in my own state.
You're a native.
I'm a native North Carolinian, and everybody I deal with is from New York, New Jersey, or Pennsylvania, or Massachusetts.
North Carolina is a great place to retire. Most of the people move down here to get away from the runaway taxes of the Northeast. What would be $100,000 value house, say up there, would carry $13,000-$14,000 a year in property tax, where somewhere in Union County might carry $1,000 in a comparable tax rate. So it's easy to see why people would move down here, besides the weather.
Yeah.
And supposedly the laid back lifestyle. You run around so fast up there, you want to get laid back, but we brought our traffic with us.
Yeah, I know. I used to live in Indian Trail about 10 years ago, and back then it was like it was kind of a sleepy little town, and it was like after 6 o'clock it was pretty much no traffic or anything. And just in the past decade, the boom that has happened in your city has really changed the landscape of Indian Trail, and with that comes the city, the bigger city problems and everything. But I still see Indian Trail as trying to stay that small town atmosphere and welcoming like that. Have you seen like a lot of? What's your opinion on the amount of growth that's been going on in your area?
Well, it started probably about 15 years ago, and for almost 4 years straight in the late 2000s to reaching 2010, Indian Trail was the top fastest growing town in America and still remained in the top 5 for many years. And if you look around the country, it's not dissimilar to anywhere that's near a major metropolis. People don't want to live in an inner city. They want to live in a suburb outside a city that can commute to the city, and lower taxes, great schools. There's no surprise why Indian Trail grew so fast, but there's only so much land to be had, and studies were done that at its maximum capacity to still have a good quality of life, Indian Trail will max out somewhere around 60,000 residents. The challenge there amongst leaders is to have a plan in place onto how do you want to set that up and have the highest and best use, and work with the state in developing your roads, work with the county in developing your schools. The biggest problem comes in when you elect somebody to public office. They keep plausible deniability and pass the buck down the road. Oh, that's the county. Oh, that's the state. You go to state. Oh, that's the county. Oh, that's the municipality. And it's the same story. Well, I tried. There's nothing to get done. And they're out on the campaign trail tooting their own horns. The fact is, the states own the roads. The states control what they're going to do. They're decided on what they're going to design and do 30 years in advance. You can go on to the Mumpo crypto website and see what's planned for the next 30 to 40 years. The schools are controlled by the counties, but the communication needs to be there amongst the municipalities and the counties on what they're preparing to build in the upcoming, so the county can get with them and the Board of Education saying Indian Trail Monroe is going to add 10,000 residents and possibly 8,000 students. We need to let them know what our needs are for the schools so that they're prepared. and we're prepared as to have a controlled method of growth, not to disrupt, because the goal is under the Constitution, if you want to live in the spirit of it, is everyone has the right to pursue happiness, just like developers. Nobody should come in and ruin another person's right to pursue happiness, which includes, if you're going to come in and build, I'm okay with people using their land. Everyone has the right to build, sell, develop, but you need to leave it better, the same or better than you found it. And buying off politicians to not have an impact fee or not have to give to the schools is just, not only is it not transparent, it should be illegal. And we should just say no if a developer or a partner comes in and doesn't want to contribute to our community, because we represent who's here, not who's going to be here.
Yeah, because there is a lot of growth. I've noticed with road construction and everything there. I was coming down Independence from 485, and right there about the Stallings area, right before you get into Indian Trail, and I almost did not even recognize the area anymore. It looked like super highways and stuff. So the area is really booming. What's the political landscape are you seeing that is coming in with all this new growth? Are you seeing it? I knew that Indian Trail is pretty much ultra conservative. Or is it still staying that way, or is it leaning a certain way?
I still see a lot of ultra conservative around, if that's what you want to call it. For me, it's not ultra conservative. It's the fear of speaking up because you'll be beat down by those that are been in the party and leading the way for many years. Mm-hmm. I see more openness amongst the younger generations that are reaching their 20s, and some of the most compassionate human beings and generation that ever walked the face of the earth, or at least this country, understanding and welcoming. I see Northeastern Democrats growing, and they've been fighting with the South Democrats, causing a lot of infighting, and they have a lot of work to do to really decide what does the Southern Democratic Party want to look like. And a lot of fighting amongst the Republican Party with that ultra-conservatism, with the, you know what, we need to get with the times and start to grow with the people and quit using fear tactics and pointing fingers. There's going to be years of fighting within each party, but I see more of an independent libertarian growth more than anything.
Yeah, that's a trend that's going on throughout the area anyway, because I think it was like the new voters in Charlotte. I think the highest group that showed the biggest increase was among independents or non-affiliated with any party. So it's important to recognize that the large growth that's coming out here is not associated with either one of the parties, whether Republican or Democrat. But Mayor, and I had a question for you as far as like the current political climate. With the current political climate, the way it is and everything, what do you see as the greatest liability and our greatest asset that is facing the GOP locally right now?
Locally, as far as the state or county?
The state.
The state, young blood. Stop handing the baton to those that feel like they've been born into the royal family. Start listening to the young that want to be Republicans and give them a voice, or we're going to lose. We're going to lose Republicans to the Libertarian Party. We're going to lose them to the newly created Constitution Party, and where they might have a voice. I don't think we'll lose them to the Democratic Party, because they're extremely backward and in this state. And it's the non-openness. It's a two-dimensional thinking. It's the non-open door policy. And we need to rebrand and re-identify ourselves as the North Carolina GOP, or we're going to start to die out. We're not listening. We're not listening to the young. We're not listening to the minority groups when they want to have a say. And many of us in the Republican Party have really just pissed off the educational institutions by just words that come out of our mouths. Yes, we're making great strides in education, but just because teachers want to voice their opinion, you don't go out there and call them bullies because they don't necessarily agree. We need to understand that people disagree with us,
right,
and welcome them and meet them halfway.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about your campaign when you were running as you were running for mayor and everything. You were a little bit different than the typical Republican norm. You had a openly gay campaign manager, correct?
I did, yes.
How did I'm just I think that's wonderful. I have said for many years that the GOP that's the one voting bloc that the GOP has seemed to ignore. Why, I don't know, but we have seen the results when the GOP reached out to the African American community, when they reached out to the Latino community. We saw results that came back as far as like voters that came into our party. But the LGBT community has been a long overlooked a segment of the population when it comes to the GOP recruiting new voters and people to join our party. And I'm just curious as to how you being a Republican candidate for mayor, how was that perceived as you having an openly gay campaign manager, especially in that area?
Nobody ever mentioned it, and I don't think that anything was ever mentioned of it at the time. But it wasn't a job interview question.
Right. Well, I mean, I respect that. I just I've always felt, me, I'm openly gay. I'm proud to also be a Republican. And I've always felt that people who are in minorities, African Americans, Latinos, gays, I feel it's important for us to be very visual and very vocal in our support for our beliefs and our values and our party. If I would have had a Republican role model when I was first coming out, I may not have been a Democrat for so long, but it was just that I never had a choice. I only had one party that was out there that came to me and tried to get my vote. And so it's easy for me to understand how the people in the LGBT community get, to where they go toward the Democrat Party. It's the only view that they're actually seeing. But I wanted to commend you for that. I understand that you didn't hire him because of his sexual orientation, but that, on the other hand, that would have stopped some in the GOP from hiring someone who was openly gay. So, like I said, I do want to commend you for that. And
Brian, it's hard. It's not something. It's like, wow, you just won a prize. You hired somebody that was from the LGBT community. I think that's downgrading a human stature. I hired a human being that was qualified for the job.
Well, I mean that you know
what they are and come from.
You know what I mean as far as
I know what you mean. I know, and I have high respect for every human being that ever walked the face of the earth. A quick thing about me is, I'm a man of faith. Yeah. And judgment's left for God Almighty. It's not left for me. And God, one of God's greatest sins is, I am the Lord thy God. I'm the only one that can judge somebody. So if I walk this earth and point my finger at someone because of the way they look, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their minority status, their majority status, they have a pimple on their nose or something, then I'm breaking one of God's greatest laws. And how can you have to practice what you preach. I try every day to walk across the water, but I sink to the bottom of the pool each time I step into it. So I'm as imperfect as imperfect comes, but I'm not going to sit there and judge another human being based off of anything, because it's what we're taught in the Bible. And if we can't really understand what's written in there and what we're supposed to do and the people we're supposed to become, then we shouldn't be holding that Bible up, preaching it to another human being.
I totally agree with you. I mean, but do you for a Christian, an open Christian, GOP, your stance on a lot of things are a lot different than the mainstream GOP. You're the type of politician. I've spoken with Chris about this. You're the type of politician that gives me hope in my party. I see a new face that is coming on, and I saw that with when Trump became the leader of our party. I saw he was fundamentally changing the foundation of who we were as a party, and he is, in my opinion, energizing us. And I think we're going to walk away from this and be a more inclusive party because of Donald Trump. And it's also because of GOP politicians like yourself as well. So with that, and another question. I understand. What do you see as your plans? Do you have any plans for possibly higher office? Do you have any goals to seek something higher than the Indian Trail Mayor?
Well, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say you didn't dream about something higher.
Yeah.
I don't know what the good Lord has in the cards for me. If I get enough people that would say, you know what, we'd like you to do this, and I get a good backing, and there'd be volunteers willing to help me get there and raise money, most certainly I would consider and run for something that's a higher office. With the resources I have and my love for my town right now, this is where I am as of today. What happens next month, next year, the year after, that hasn't been written in the books yet. And it would take people to get behind me and come up with a game plan and know who I am, what I stand for, and say, yes, I believe in that. Be willing to stand beside me, sometimes lead me, because I'm not perfect, to the way I should be going, because I expect those that stand behind me to call me up and kick me in the keister when I'm doing something wrong and say that shouldn't be done that way. And I'm like, oh, my bad. There's a lot to be decided. And unfortunately, politics is a money game. Yeah. It's a race to the bank to who can raise the most money to come up with the most propaganda to get elected. And for me, it's hard for me to justify spending $1 million of people's donations on winning an election when $1 million could put books in my schools, can feed some children, help a single mom out there, when we're wasting it to deceive the public to run for public office.
That is so refreshing to hear a politician say that. I've said that many, many times, and it is very refreshing to hear a politician actually come out and say that, because these multi-million-dollar campaigns, all I can think about is how many homeless vets that could save, how many elderly people could that money be going to buy their prescriptions for them, how many children can be given the necessary tools that they need in order to succeed in their education. And just to get a vote, and it costs multi-millions of dollars, it's ridiculous. And that's really been one of my biggest turnoffs with the political scene. It's very refreshing to hear you say that.
But do you blame the politician spending the money, or do you blame the American voter for being so easily moved by a piece of paper or by a television ad to go out and vote? Do you blame the politician that only 8% of the registered voters vote and then 92% complain?
Yeah, I hate. I don't really know who I blame. It's just that I hate the fact that our political scene has gotten the way that it has gotten. I think our forefathers intended for every single one of us to go to elected office, and we were supposed to go for like 6 weeks to 6 months, and every one of us serve, and then we were to go back to our jobs. It wasn't supposed to become this multi-million-dollar stand in office for 40, 50 years, and I don't think that's what our founding fathers had intended.
No, I don't think so either. But and a lot of political science students and I have talked about this. Actually, Congress is a 2-year term. Mm-hmm. To really get something done, you need about a decade in office to really get something passed. So there should be a 6-term term limit for Congress and a 2-term term limit for senators for a 6-year term, because it takes about 10 years to really change something. Yeah. You can't go in for 2 years or 4 years in Congress and really make a difference. But after that 12-year time limit, you're either there for the ride and the power, or you're there and you made your changes and you've inspired the next group of people to come in and do it.
Mr. Mayor, one other question I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the young people a lot, and I do think that is where the GOP does lack a lot in getting the young people motivated to join our side. The Democrats target the young people. They have the Rock the Vote. They have they go into the schools. They're even going into the high schools now and promoting events, and it's all to get future voters. What can you tell? What would be your suggestion for the GOP and how we can court these younger voters and how we can bring them over to our party? Because it's easy for the Democrats. When you promise a bunch of free stuff and you promise unattainable goals to give them, it's easy to entice people to come to their side. But we're offering, we're telling people the truth. So what's your best advice on how to go about, getting these newer voters, the younger people, to come on over to our side?
First, we need to admit to ourselves that these younger voters have more information in 10 seconds than it took us 10 months. So they're going to double check us and fact check us. So we better make sure that we are willing to answer the tough questions. We are willing to give a real answer, and we are willing to give them a voice. When someone comes at you and says, well, I want free college, we should all have free college, ask them, how do you expect to pay for this? When they come back with an answer that's unrealistic, have the facts and numbers to show them, saying, this is why it's realistic, but somewhere in between something can work. And then they'll think about it and they'll come back and say, what you said was right, so maybe if we move it this way. They don't necessarily understand that you can't give it to them for free, but if you give them the facts and the information, they'll back down and they'll start to let their minds work, and they'll come back to us saying, we've come up with this. But once they come up with that, we need to be willing to let them in. Yeah. We need to be willing to take that information, tweak it some more, give it back to them, tweak it some more, because it's a whole new world. They're being, like you said, they're being told by the Democrats, free, 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 free. And they're not seeing the other end of it. They think, wow, stars and glories, I'm going to make $20 an hour in my first job at a fast food restaurant. But they don't see the repercussions. Nobody's showing them the repercussions. All we're doing as a party is pointing fingers back at the Democrats. Yeah. I'm not a finger pointer. I'm not someone that's going to sit there and insult my opponent. I'm going to tell you what I can do, and I'm going to challenge my opponent to prove the details of what they say they're going to do. That's how you're going to welcome these young people. They're not stupid. They'll look at you. They'll do that. I've challenged them on free college. I've challenged them on free healthcare. I've challenged my employees in the food business on this $15 an hour. And I had to show them, I make this much profit. One day of a broken refrigerator, I've lost a week's worth of profit. And if you want that much money, then you work out the day. I have to lay you off, and I'm going to have to be the only one that works this. Or I'm going to have to double the price of a sandwich. You show them, you give them the tools, and they understand. And they'll come. I promise you they'll come.
I think if we just we're honest with the new voters and everything, because just like with the LGBT community, that's why I try to get the GOP to reach out to the LGBT, because our habits alone put us more in line with the GOP than they ever will the Democrat Party. It's really hard when you're your party has been lied about for so long to these young people. The Democrats, they don't care whether they get results. They never have. They just care that the lie that they tell the new voter is going to be believable to them to get them to cast that vote. Because once they cast that vote, I mean, and I've lived this for many decades. As soon as they get that new voter to cast that vote, they're through with you until the next 2 years. And then they'll be back to tell you the exact same lie. And I think the younger people are really starting to get involved. They're tired of being lied to. They're starting to see the lies. But, that's a hard thing for us in the GOP to overcome when the lies that the Democrats are saying about our party are so extravagant to try to get over. It's kind of I mean, heck, if I got a young person standing in front of me and one side is promising them free college and the other side is trying to tell them the reality of what free college is, to a young mind that actually doesn't really know the economics yet, they're going to. It's not hard to see which side they're gonna choose, and that's where the old saying comes into play. If you're not a liberal at 18, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative at 40, you have no brain. It's just that we, from that point of 18 to 40, can do a lot of damage to us unless we get the true facts to the younger voters and let them see the reality of some stuff.
That's absolutely right. I mean, there's that old saying, I was a Democrat, then I got a job.
Yeah, exactly. Started paying taxes.
And I said that to my group of students when President Obama was elected. They kept saying, oh, he's going to change this. He's energized the young. He's energized the young. It was the greatest thing. He energized the young. He was the first social media candidate. And that he did. And regardless of what you think of his presidency, he woke up the millennials. And revolution doesn't occur when you wake up people to vote. Revolution occurs when you wake up people to vote and you've deceived them. And hence, we now have Donald Trump as president because they were deceived by 8 years of Barack Obama. And the revolution began with Donald Trump.
Do you think the younger voters played how much part do you think the younger voters played in electing Donald Trump?
I think they played a large group because I met more younger voters that voted for Trump than I did that voted the other way. And for the I don't know, whatever her name was, I think I shredded that email. But they were deceived. The world didn't become kumbaya. Everything wasn't unicorns and rainbows. They realized politicians deceive. And if Donald Trump has accomplished anything, he's exposed the dysfunction of our political system. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to blow it up from the inside. And that's exactly what he did. Whether you agree with his politics or not, he's blown up politics in this country forevermore. What we do with that information, what we do as a party to change, to understand what these young people want, is up to us now.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Chris, is there any questions that you had?
Well, I've been listening in, and as far as you talked about the money involved in running for office, and you've also mentioned stuff like people wanting free education and that kind of stuff. I've always wondered how much of a role the internet's going to play in the future of the whole political system, whether it's voting or, campaigning. I think Donald Trump, besides manipulating the media in a very strategic and clever way by just sucking all the oxygen out of the room, and you couldn't focus on anything but Trump during the campaign, he was able to get a lot of free publicity, and he won spending a fraction of what Hillary Clinton spent. How much of a role do you think that's going to play, and going forward with just mainstream political candidates? And how long do you think it'll take for us to really see a major shift from the huge money candidates backed by a major party to maybe the smaller third party candidates getting more of a fair shake of it because they're able to reach as many people without spending hundreds of millions of dollars?
I would say as little as 2 years, as long as 10 years, and anywhere in between, depending, because time's moving faster and faster and new technologies coming out. The problem with an all internet campaign is eventually people are going to get smart and realize that stories on the internet are manipulated, and there's a heck of a lot of fake news out there. And it's going to take ultra intelligence to decipher, and common sense, probably more so common sense than anything, to decipher the fake from the real. And the way I tell my students to decipher the fake from the real is if it hasn't hit the major news networks and that story's that big, chances are it's fake, because they would be all over it. If there's going to be a happy median, the internet's going to play a page road. There'll be, I would think, more like video podcasts and candidates willing to go live for voters to call nationwide and actually have them hear them speak live with a select amount, whatever time portrays, of questions. I think history repeats itself. People are going to want to see their candidate, and they're going to hold them responsible. It's like if you're running for a state office and you say, my phone's open to you, and you don't call back, that person's not going to get reelected. We have I don't think either party has really put their pulse on the millennials and then the generation that comes after them. Over the next 2 to 15 years, there's going to be a whole new political landscape, and either one of our parties is going to have to stand up and take advantage of that and work with it, or there's going to be a whole new political party. And hopefully the internet lowers the price of these Mega Million campaign. I'm all for the soapbox candidate. I'm old school.
I am too. I agree with you there.
I think, as offices get bigger, it's harder to talk to everyone. And I think the internet's a good tool. I think, this is the first time I've ever been with a podcast. I think a podcast is a great way to do something. And I think media is going to get less money, get less and less expensive. I don't know how many TV commercials will work, as opposed to going on Hulu or Netflix, and they should start doing inexpensive commercials, because that's where they're watching. And Facebook's a dinosaur waiting to happen. Snapchat and these other social media mediums are rising, and I'm sure there'll be a new one before the next year's election or the next presidential election. Just taking advantage of this technology should lower the costs of it. But the time frame from it can happen as soon as next week or take a decade.
Well, I'm going to have to put you on the spot here for just a second. I would like to get with the midterms coming up. Today was the first day of early voting in North Carolina. I went out, I cast my vote, and do you have any predictions on the midterms, on whether the races, on whether we're going to keep the House or the Senate? What is your prediction? How do you see this midterm playing out?
I don't see us losing the Senate. There's some highly contested House races out there. We're going to probably lose a couple, gain a few, but I think we're going to retain the majority, as long. There's just one caveat there: as long as our base gets out to vote, because what people didn't realize prior to the last election, or want to admit to themselves that I saw, is the same thing. We are the silent majority. We will get out and vote. There's just the base. Is the base energized and still energized?
I think we're the most energized right now than we ever have been in our party's history. But right now, I've traditionally, historically, the party in power does lose seats in the Congress, but some people are starting to change their predictions as far as whether as far as the Senate, we're predicted to actually gain some seats in the Senate. And this has all come about from the Kavanaugh hearings and how that played out, and the bad taste that it left in a lot of voters' mouths, just watching a man be crucified without any type of evidence. And that really turned a lot of voters. And I think this that brought the enthusiasm level for this midterm up in our party. As far as the House, a lot of people were predicting, like I said, historically, the party in power loses seats. But now a lot of people are starting to trend to say that we actually might keep the House. I was just curious if, with some of the races out there, if you thought that keeping the House was actually a possibility for us. I actually think it is. I think we're going to, I think actually just like we did in 2016, we went against all the polls and everything, and we defied history. And under Donald Trump, there's nothing that can't be done, in my opinion, because whenever he's been told that he can't get it done, he showed you that he got it done, and he got it done better than what he even predicted himself. So I'm actually feeling very optimistic and keeping the House now. I was just curious if you maybe thought the same thing.
Yeah, I don't see us losing the House or the Senate, and I'll go on the absurd here. We're going to keep the House and we're going to keep the Senate, and now they're going to blame China or North Korea for interfering.
Well, somebody's going to get blamed. They're going to blame someone. They'll blame everyone but themselves. The Democrats have just the Democrat Party. I think if this is my prediction, if we keep the House and Senate, that is going to deal a blow to the Democrat Party that I do not think that they will ever recover from in time before the 2020 elections.
No, they don't have a viable candidate.
Yeah,
well, let's just face it. No, let me rephrase that. They probably have several viable candidates out there, but they still think Hillary's going to be their candidate.
Yeah, that's the whole issue, is they have not gotten over that 2016 election, and their anger is what's driving them to do everything they can. Mr. Mayor, I think we're going to wrap it up now. Is there any final words you'd like to say, or?
I'm humbled and honored that you invited me on your podcast. Hope I don't disappoint you.
Definitely haven't. That's the reason we have invited you on, because you're the future of the GOP, and I'm a proud Republican. Chris is a libertarian. We don't always see eye to eye on certain things, but we do work out our differences, and we both love America and do we work out our differences for the best, for America. But
we need more people like you.
Yes, you give me hope in the Republican Party, just like Trump gave me hope that he was changing our party for the better. You're the type of GOP politician that I'm proud to get behind. I would definitely like to work with you in the future, and like to if you got higher office goals, aspirations. That's the word I was trying to look for, but it just didn't sound right when I was trying to get it out. But you're definitely the type of GOP candidate that I think can change our party, and I admire that about you. And I'm looking forward to a new relationship with you.
I'm looking forward to building a relationship with both of you and both your organizations, and learning more. And every day is a learning opportunity, not only as a person but as a politician, in becoming not only what the person that God intends you to be, but the best possible representative of the people you serve. And being in the real estate, I don't know any other, and other districts, and to give them the respect and help bring them up with you. I look forward to building a relationship with you. And if enough people get behind me and find an office they think is fit for me, my ears are open, and my family's behind that. And we'll do what we have to do to not only keep America great, but truly make it an example to the future, and make the past proud of us.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it has definitely been a pleasure talking with you today, and we look forward to having you on again as a guest. And Chris, any last words?
Thank you very much for coming on. It was awesome to get to know more about you. And like Brian said, like you said, I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you.
And thank you again to Michael Alvarez, the mayor of Indian Trail, North Carolina, for being our guest on today's podcast. Brian, what did you think?
Like I said, he gives me hope with the Republican Party. I like his style of politics. I like his blunt honesty. And who would have ever figured all these New York people coming down here and actually shaking up the Republican Party? I like it. It's given me hope.
I agree. I think that what he said about listening to to the younger generations, the millennials, I think that's one area that the GOP could stand to improve upon. And I agree with his thoughts on the big money involved in political campaigning. It's unfortunate that the political machine is what it is. Hopefully, with technology, will come reforms and new ways of campaigning, so that
I like that
people.
I like that he said he's a soapbox type of candidate
Exactly.
The soapbox types of candidates, you tend to get more honesty out of them, I see that with him. I like his style of politics.
Well, like you said before we did the interview, early voting has begun in North Carolina and in other parts of the country. I'm sure that it started as well if early voting exists. If not, absentee voting is probably available at this point. And certainly November 6th is the big day. Remember to vote, whether it's during early voting, whether it's absentee or on election day. Remember to vote. This is not necessarily to vote for the candidates who are on the ballot. This is, do you like Trump? Do you want the Make America Great Again agenda to continue, or do you want the Democrats to bring it to a screeching halt? So even if you got to hold your nose while you vote, even if your candidate didn't make the cut, get out there and vote anyway. This is important. This is for Trump,
bigger prize.
For MAGA. This is, you got to look at you got to look at the big picture here. And I'm the first to say that I'm not a party person. And I'm going to vote for those who are going to support the president. That's all there is to it.
Because we got some great things in store for the next 2 years. If we can get the president, the Congress that he needs in order to get the MAGA agenda come to a success, then we've got some great things that are in store for these next 2 years under this president, and I'm looking forward to it. If we just imagine the things that he could have done if we had people behind him and not so many people were working against him, this president could have done even more amazing things. So that's why this midterm is very crucial, that we've got to give him the Congress that is going to allow him the pathway to get this Make America Great Again agenda accomplished.
Going forward, what do we have planned for the next couple of weeks?
Well, it's going to be getting out here, getting people energized for get out here and vote for the midterms, because we don't have many more days left before the election. I'm going to be making phone calls. I'm set up. We're going to be making some phone calls to voters. I think I've got the system a little down. I understand it. I tried to make phone calls the other day at the Union GOP, and I didn't realize that I had to answer a question at the bottom as to how the interaction with each person went and submit that. So I was sitting there calling the same person over and over for the first 20 times.
Oh, my God.
Let me just say, my first interaction with the person that finally answered the phone was not a good one. And I got cussed out my first time, and I had no idea I was calling the same number over and over. It's kind of hard when you're doing it on your phone and you have to scroll up to see the very bottom part of it to complete that. And but I tried to apologize and let him know that I was new. But after I understand how somebody calls me for 20 times, I would have probably had the same reaction that he did. But I got the hang of it. I got it here. This is something. Contact it's important that everyone contact your local GOP, get involved with the phone banking thing. This is something that you can sit on your couch at home and do. And you don't have to go to the headquarters, get involved. A lot of people are a little turned off with the going to people's homes and knocking on doors and having to have that type of interaction. That's something that keeps people from wanting to get to volunteer and stuff. But this is something, the phone banking thing, you can get set up on it with an app if you have the an iPhone, or you can go to the website if you have Android. And it's very simple. They make the call for you. They give you the list of questions to ask the people, and you just punch in the people's answers and you thank them. And this is something that you can get involved with and do it at your own pace and at your own time in your own home. And it's a lot more comfortable and it's a little bit more laid back. So if somebody's looking to get involved and see where they can help to get some candidates elected to support our president's agenda, the phone banking is an excellent way. And if anybody wants to send us an email, contact deplorablepride@gmail.com. That's the word contact, deplorablepride@gmail.com. We can see what we can do about setting them up with GOP and their local area. And this phone banking thing is all nationwide. So regardless, depending on where you're at, the local GOP office can set you up with that.
Very good. Well, guys, get involved in whatever way you can, whether it's doing a roadside rally, making phone calls, door knocking, whatever you can do. The GOP needs you. And I know that rhymed. It certainly wasn't intentional.
I like it, though.
It does have a nice ring to it. Maybe they should pay me some money and they can use that.
It's very true, because we've got a big force working against this president, and it's going to take all of us to stand up in opposition to that force to protect our president and our agenda and everything that he has accomplished so far. So you never know what that one phone call could do. You can sway a person in how they're going to vote, and you might not think that you have that power, but I witnessed that. I witnessed that myself just the other day when I was calling people. So you do have that power to possibly sway people. If nothing else, you're calling people and reminding them. It's like, what did you say, MAGA 3?
Yeah, MAGA 3X. Get 3 people to the polls that otherwise wouldn't have voted.
Yeah, I mean, the enthusiasm's on our side. This is the midterm that we're going to make history, and I think it's like only 3 times in U.S. history that the party in power did not lose seats, and we can actually be a part of history again. We did it. We proved them wrong in 2016, and we can prove them wrong again in 2018.
Good stuff. Well, guys, check out deplorablepride.org. Find us on Facebook. You can search for deplorablepride.org. You can find Carolinas for Trump on Facebook, carolinasfortrump.us. You want to donate, deplorablepride.org. There's a button up at the top. Same thing with carolinasfortrump.us. Your donations help to fund events like the rallies, the roadside rallies, buying equipment, flags, banners, the signs, water for people when we go to a rally. That sort of stuff. So it's definitely appreciated, definitely needed. You're a big part of what we do. We couldn't do it without our supporters, and we do appreciate each and every one of you.
And everybody can see our videos and see where their donation. You can see your donations in use there. That's rare. A lot of times, a lot of people donate. They don't actually get to see where their donations go to, but you donate to us, you'll see your donation in action. You'll see what we actually do with it, and the progress that we make with it, and it's greatly appreciated. We appreciate 1 penny all the way up to the $500 that people are giving us. We appreciate everything. We treat every donation the same.
That's right. So check back next week, same time, same place. You can find us on Spreaker. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on SoundCloud even. And tell a friend. Share this with someone that you think might be interested in what we're talking about. And certainly get involved. That's the big takeaway. Get involved. Go vote. This is critical. Now is the time to do it. And after November 6th, it's going to be 2020, full speed ahead. So this is the first step in getting there. So get out and vote. Tell your friends. Remind your neighbors, coworkers, family members. You know who they are, the ones that are going to vote for the right side. Get them to the polls. Give them a ride. Do what you got to do to make it happen, guys.
And also, Deplorable Pride and Carolinas for Trump. We're also to get out to the vote. If you need a ride, contact us by those email addresses again, and we will arrange you a ride. One thing different about us and the Democrats have to run a GoFundMe page in order to get to offer this service, but we're doing it. You don't owe us nothing. You just call us up and tell us you need a ride and you don't have a way to get to the poll. We will make sure that you are there at the poll.
That's
you got to
awesome.
be local though, because I can't be driving to California to give you a ride down to the poll.
Yeah, this is just for the greater Charlotte area. So from
the greater Charlotte area,
Concord, Kannapolis, Statesville, Gastonia.
If you're in any of those areas and you don't have a way to get to the poll and you want to vote, you contact us, and I will guarantee you will be at the poll. You will have a ride there.
All right, Brian. I think we're going to cut this one off at this point. Any last words before we sign off?
No, I just get out there, vote today, and make America great again, and free the weed.
Got to throw that one in. Free the weed, guys. Tune in next week. We'll catch you then.